Most people have this completely backward. There's a dangerous myth floating around that an emergency fund is just a $1,000 cushion. But let's be real, $1,000 won't even cover a surprise HVAC repair, let alone a medical bill or months without income. That isn't a safety net. That's a financial band-aid. The truth is, the emergency fund isn't just some budgeting box to tick. It's the wall between a bad day and a financial disaster. So let's break it down. What it really means to be prepared, how much is enough based on life stage and income type, and how to keep your emergency fund from turning into just another pot of cash that disappears every time there's a new iPhone or concert tour. This is about financial resilience, family protection, and even legacy planning. Because here's the deal, every dollar saved needs a mission. Otherwise, it just wanders off. Emergency fund sizing. One size does not fit all. Emergency fund rules are not carved in stone. They bend and adjust depending on life stage, income type, and financial goals. Think of it more like custom tailoring than a one-size-fits-all hoodie. The question isn't just how much, it's how much for who. Take someone who's single, renting, and has a steady job. There's no mortgage, no dependents, just basic living expenses. In that case, 3 months of expenses is usually enough to weather a job loss or medical hiccup. So if monthly spending is about $2,000, a $6,000 emergency fund makes sense. Not glamorous, but practical. It gives breathing room to find another job without panic buying everything on a credit card. Now switch that scenario. Same job stability, but now there's a mortgage. Suddenly, those monthly expenses aren't just groceries and Netflix. They include property taxes, maintenance surprises, and the joy of replacing a water heater on a Sunday. So now that same emergency fund target jumps to 6 months worth. At $3,500 a month, that's $21,000. Not because the person became more high maintenance, but because life became more layered. More roots means more risk if things shake. For families, the stakes go up again. A household with kids, dual incomes, or even a single provider is juggling job security, medical costs, home repairs, school fees, the list goes on. This is where 6 to 12 months of expenses becomes the benchmark. At $5,000 a month, the fund range sits between $30,000 to $60,000. It's not just about surviving a job loss. It's about not having to make gut-wrenching choices between buying groceries and paying for medicine. And then there's the freelancer, the entrepreneur, the creative gig worker. No paycheck every 2 weeks, no employer-sponsored safety net. One great month, followed by 2 dry ones. For variable income, emergency fund targets stretch even more, 12 to 24 months of core living expenses. So if the average month costs $4,000, the target is $48,000 to $96,000. Because there's no HR department cutting severance checks when a contract disappears. That emergency fund, it is the paycheck during dry spells. Now add another layer, high-risk jobs. If a job depends on niche skills, vulnerable industries, or a volatile market, it makes sense to set aside a minimum of 12 months expenses. A longer job hunt means a bigger cushion. This isn't being paranoid, it's being prepared. And here's a crucial detail. Emergency fund calculations are based on bare essentials. That means keeping the house running, feeding the family, covering insurance, not getting hair and nails done, not keeping up with streaming subscriptions or luxury coffees. It's about living lean, not living lavish. There's no need to build the entire fund overnight. It grows in phases, but knowing the right size for each situation, that's where real peace of mind begins. What actually counts as an emergency? Let's clear up a common mistake. A lot of people treat their emergency fund like a general-purpose debit card. The logic goes something like, I didn't budget for this, must be an emergency. But just because something is inconvenient or surprising doesn't mean it qualifies. A true emergency threatens stability. Think job loss. That's the top reason these funds even exist. Income disappears, bills don't. A solid emergency fund covers the gap long enough to secure a new job without panic. Then there are medical emergencies, unexpected surgeries, ER visits, expensive prescriptions. These aren't just costly, they're often time-sensitive and emotionally draining. Then there's the fun stuff, car and home repairs. HVAC goes out in July, that's a survival level emergency. Roof leaks in a thunderstorm, that's not something that can wait. These aren't luxury upgrades, they're non-negotiable expenses that hit hard and fast. And don't forget about temporary disability. If illness or injury makes working impossible, even short-term, the emergency fund becomes the income bridge. Same goes for urgent family emergencies, sudden travel needs, caregiving costs. Life doesn't always give warnings. But here's what doesn't count. A vacation, a birthday gift, a sale on a new TV. Even things like holiday expenses or back-to-school shopping don't belong here. Those are predictable and should be part of a regular budget or separate savings. The real rule is simple. If it wasn't planned, and it would go straight to a credit card if not for the emergency fund, that's an emergency. Otherwise, it's just poor planning. Where should the emergency fund live? The money has to be available, quickly. That rules out investments like stocks. Imagine needing cash urgently, and the market's down 15%. That's a disaster on top of a crisis. Same with bonds. They're safer, but slow to liquidate. And savings stuffed under a mattress? It just quietly loses value to inflation while pretending to feel safe. The best home for emergency funds is a high-yield savings account. Look for one offering 4 to 5% APY. Online banks like Ally, Marcus, or American Express tend to lead the pack. They're FDIC insured, which means up to $250,000 is protected, and most importantly, they're liquid. Money can be accessed within a day, no drama, no penalties. Money market accounts are another option. They function like high-yield savings with similar returns and quick access, though some have slightly lower rates or minimum balances. What doesn't work? Checking accounts. Too tempting to dip into. That money disappears on dinners and Amazon checkouts. And combining all savings into one pile? That's the classic mistake. Everything becomes a put and take account. One day, it's savings. Next day, it's boat money. That's how emergency funds quietly evaporate. Savings needs assignments, a job. Emergency fund? That's its own role. It's not Christmas money, not car replacement cash, and definitely not transition money. When dollars have a mission, they stick around. When they don't, they drift. How to build it without burning out. Emergency funds don't have to show up overnight. They grow in stages, smartly, steadily, without crushing the rest of the budget. Start with a simple goal. Build $1,000, not because that's enough, but because it's a starter, a cushion against flat tires and urgent dentist visits. Then aim for 1 month's expenses. If rent, groceries, and insurance cost $2,000 monthly, then that becomes the new goal. Hit that and level up to 3 months, $6,000 in this case. Eventually, build up to 6 to 12 months. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And here's the key. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. Small wins matter. Even $50 a week adds up over time. The goal is consistency, not heroics. Because most emergencies don't wait until there's a perfect savings balance. They show up on regular days with irregular timing. Automating savings helps. Setting up a $200 automatic transfer into a dedicated high-yield account makes the process consistent and forget-proof. No mental effort, no decision fatigue, just slow, steady growth. And when those transfers are scheduled, savings becomes part of the routine, like brushing teeth or paying the light bill. It doesn't feel dramatic, but that's exactly the point. Emergency funds aren't meant to be dramatic, they're meant to be dependable. Lifestyle creep can be the enemy of savings. As income rises, spending tends to rise faster. That's why even high earners sometimes live paycheck to paycheck. Without discipline, more money just means more pressure. But when savings grows along with income, that pressure turns into margin. And for those with variable income, freelancers, gig workers, small business owners, the buildup needs to be even more intentional. When income spikes, save aggressively. Because lean months are not a surprise. They're part of the rhythm. Planning for them isn't pessimistic. It's professional. That kind of planning creates freedom. Freedom to take on meaningful work instead of just whatever pays quickest. Freedom to say no to toxic clients or burnout jobs. An emergency fund turns panic into patience. It also protects from emotional decisions. Without savings, every unexpected bill feels personal, like life is out to get you. But when there's a fund in place, it becomes just another task. Inconvenient, sure, but not life-altering. Some households choose to build a separate transition fund. That's for career pivots, sabbaticals, or just leaving a job that drains the soul. It's not an emergency fund, it's a freedom fund. And having one creates room to breathe during big life shifts without draining the actual emergency reserves. And let's be honest, not every career move comes with perfect timing. Sometimes the right opportunity shows up before the finances are fully lined up. A transition fund bridges that gap. It buys time to think, not just react. There's also value in creating mini goals along the way. Maybe the first target is $1,000, then $2,500, then $5,000. Milestones help keep motivation alive. Each number hit becomes proof that progress is happening, even if the end goal still feels far away. What matters most is building the habit. The discipline of setting money aside regularly is more powerful than the size of any single deposit. Habits carry through every season. High income, low income, windfalls, setbacks. There's a difference between needing money because something broke and needing money because something changed. One's a pothole. The other is a new road entirely. Both need funding, but they need different plans. The emergency fund isn't just a buffer, it's a signal to yourself and your household that financial security is a priority. It shows that decisions are made with foresight, not just reaction. It's the quiet confidence that comes from knowing there's margin, space between chaos and calm. Not everything has to turn into a crisis when there's something set aside for the unexpected. And building that margin, that's one of the most underrated forms of financial peace. How to use it and not abuse it. Using the emergency fund is never ideal, but when it's needed, it's a lifeline. A job loss can last 3 to 6 months. With a well-stocked fund, there's time to search carefully, not accept the first offer out of fear. That changes everything. Medical bills can land with brutal force. Instead of scrambling to figure out how to pay, the emergency fund handles the bill. No delay, no stress. Home and car breakdowns stop being financial derailments and become speed bumps. Big, expensive speed bumps, but manageable ones. But here's the key. Use it only for emergencies. Not to buy stocks on a dip, not to splurge during the holidays, not to get ahead on a great investment opportunity. That's what the investment account is for. The emergency fund is the wall. Without it, every setback becomes a spiral. And when the fund is used, rebuild immediately. That becomes priority one. Pause investing, cut back elsewhere, but refill the tank. Emergencies don't wait for the perfect time. Rebuilding the buffer is how financial security is restored. The bigger picture, emergency funds and legacy. There's another reason why emergency funds matter, beyond monthly budgets and job loss protection. It's legacy. Right now, there's a massive shift happening, $68 trillion set to change hands in what's being called the Great Wealth Transfer. Baby boomers are passing down wealth to Gen X, millennials, and charities. But there's a hidden trap. Around 60% of those wealth transfers fail, not because of taxes, not because of bad investments, but because of lack of preparation and poor communication. Families don't talk about money. Heirs aren't taught how to manage sudden wealth. And the result? Blow-ups, infighting, inheritance gone in months. That's why emergency funds matter, because they're step one in financial maturity, before inheritance, before trust funds, before charitable giving. If someone can't handle a $2,000 crisis, how will they handle a $200,000 inheritance? And this isn't just about individuals, it's about families. Teaching kids to set aside cash for the unexpected, talking to heirs about savings, spending, values, and what money is for, even involving them in planning. A simple conversation now could save an entire legacy later. It's not just about having documents in place or legal structures set up. It's about building habits that make wealth stick. A will can name a beneficiary, but it can't teach discipline. An estate plan can protect assets, but it can't protect against poor decisions. The emergency fund is the first real test. Can someone build it, maintain it, and respect its purpose? Parents who build wealth often hope to bless the next generation, not burden them with responsibility they're not ready for. That readiness doesn't come from inheritance paperwork. It comes from lived experience, saving for the unknown, resisting impulse spending, planning instead of reacting. Imagine teaching a 16-year-old to build a mini emergency fund with their first part-time paycheck. That's legacy in motion. It's not just a talk about money, it's a hands-on lesson in preparation. That same teen, 10 years later, handles an inheritance with clarity instead of chaos. Too often, wealth feels like a windfall, but the reality is, sudden money without preparation is a setup. It's not just about receiving it, but keeping it, growing it, and eventually passing it on with wisdom. Generational wealth starts long before the wealth is transferred. It starts with everyday habits, like deciding not to touch the emergency fund when temptation hits, like keeping savings goals separated, with each one having a purpose, like modeling financial conversations that don't end in confusion or silence. And for anyone building wealth today, passing it down well starts now. That means helping heirs connect with trusted advisors, not just during a crisis, but years before. It means walking them through the reasoning behind decisions, not just the numbers. An emergency fund may not seem like a tool for legacy, but it is. It teaches boundaries. It teaches priorities. It's proof that money can be controlled, not just spent. And when that foundation exists, the odds of a successful transfer grow. This kind of planning isn't cold or clinical. It's love in financial form. It's protection that outlives the paycheck. It's peace of mind that spans generations. Because inheritance without preparation is just a pile of potential. But inheritance built on habits like emergency saving, that's a legacy with direction. The emergency fund isn't flashy. It doesn't get applause or make headlines, but it's the foundation everything else stands on. Without it, a single unexpected bill can turn into credit card debt, late fees, or worse. With it, the same situation becomes just another bump in the road. How much is enough? That depends. For some, it's 3 months. For others, 12. The number shifts based on risk, income, and responsibilities, but the principle stays the same. Save first, build protection, then invest. It's not just about having money, it's about having control over situations, emotions, decisions. Emergency funds offer that control. They turn fear into confidence. So build the fund. Keep it separate. Give it a purpose. And when life throws a punch, the money will be ready. And so will the mindset. For more breakdowns like this, don't forget to hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and check out our latest deep dives. Start building financial stability today before trying to build financial freedom. And if someone in the family is thinking about leaving a legacy or passing down wealth, send them this video, because it all starts here. More smart content? It's waiting. Hit that button. Let's build a financially bulletproof future together.